on SportsCenter with a sunset again this year. The Rockets are the latest to try and take a bite, while Michael licks his chops in Miami. More than half the top 25 on the court. Terry DeHare hyped for the Hall in the holidays. St. John's looking to throw the monster mash off his game. Ray Hanley has finally left the building in the Meadowlands. What to do for an encore?
I'm still looking for a guy with thick skin because and somewhat maladjusted.
Jason Verduzco adjusts to the Rainbow Rush in the Holiday Bowl as we continue our on-site insight into the Sugar Bowl. Seating is limited, so thanks for dropping in on SportsCenter.
Good evening. Welcome to SportsCenter. I'm Dan Patrick along with Gary Miller.
Hey, the bowl season is gaining steam towards Friday. We'll make our nightly visit to New Orleans, where Alabama's defense is so intimidating. Dennis Erickson actually said he's hoping his team can just score in the Sugar Bowl. We begin, though, with an NBA powerhouse, which has had no trouble scoring so far this year.
Or at least their leading scorer hasn't. Michael does Miami tonight, Gary. The league's youngest team took its second stab of the season at the two-time defending champs. The Heat lost to the Bulls nearly 2 weeks ago, despite holding Michael Jordan without a field goal for the first three quarters. Chicago is one of three teams Miami has never defeated. Portland and Phoenix are the other two. We take you to the last meeting. Michael went 0 for 11 during the first three quarters. And even when Michael had a decent shot, or at least thought he did, Ronnie Cycli was there to reject him. Tonight was a little bit different, a little bit more talc for Mike. And he was up to the task, getting bumped by Kevin Edwards, gets it to go. This time he says, take this, Ronnie Cycli. Bulls led it by 5. Glenn Rice for 3. Rice again, he's pumped up. He had only 6 in the first half, 27 in the second half. The Bulls led by only 2. But guess who took over? Mike. Mike had 39, and the Bulls pick up the victory by the final of 105-100. 21 of Michael's points came from the foul line. Remember a couple of weeks ago when he was fined for criticizing the referees in Atlanta because Dominique shot so many free throws? Michael went 21 of 24 from the line. Miami as a team, 15 of 21. He ends up with 39, 6 boards, and 8 assists. Since he injured his foot 16 games ago, he hasn't exactly hit the bullseye. Michael is shooting 54% for the first 11 games of the season. He's been shooting 45% the last 16. But one stat to keep in mind, he's shooting 86% from the line. That's why Michael is still dangerous on the floor. The Phoenix Suns, will it be 14 in a row? Yes, it will. Late in the fourth, we will bring you highlights of this game as they're dominating the Rockets. They've dominated everybody, yet to lose in December, and it doesn't look like they're going to, putting their franchise record 13-game winning streak on the line. Once again, highlights of this game as soon as it ends.
As a measure of how magical things have gotten for Orlando and the lack of magic surrounding the current Lakers, L.A. came to Orlando this evening to play a team with a better record. Well, Orlando has won 5 of 6 to move within 2.5 of New York in the Atlantic. The Lakers have won only once in that same span, trying to regroup on the road, the longest road trip of the year. And Dennis Scott, who do you think he's pointing to? Shaquille O'Neal is the man underneath with the Thunder down under. Shaquille had 23 points and 23 rebounds. Another super night for the rookie. Scott driving the lane and jamming one home. Also had 3 3-pointers, 19 in the game. The Lakers battling tough. 47 all at the half. It was tied at the end of 3. Sam Perkins keeping it that way. He had 21. 93-91 Lakers, seconds remaining. O'Neal down the lane around Divac, got the hoop, but called for traveling in his own building. The Magic can't believe it, but that's the way it ends. The Lakers missed a free throw late, but got the rebound after the foul and hold on to win it 96-93. Nick Anderson had 30 in a losing cause. The Lakers end their 3-game losing streak and spread it around. Divac and Threet each had a dozen points. L.A. continues to have trouble scoring, but hold off the Orlando Magic. At the Delta Center, the Sixers and the Jazz, the rejuvenated Philadelphia 76ers, with Manute Bol in the lineup, but they work around him and over him this time to Karl Malone inside. Jeff Hornacek has been on a scoring rampage lately, and he answers 53-51 Utah. Malone and Hornacek had 18 apiece in the half. Hornacek with a bounce pass to Hawkins, who had 20. Philly's on top, and then Stockton with the steal goes coast to coast and gives Utah a 7-point spread. They were up by 10 in the fourth. The Sixers made a run, but Malone cut the lane and was unstoppable. They stretched the lead to as many as a dozen and won it 119-110. What a night for Karl Malone, who had 32, adding a dozen rebounds, and nearly had a triple-double with 9 assists as Utah has straightened it out at home. They've won 8 in a row in their own building after opening up 1 and 4 in the Delta Center. The Sixers had been 3-1 with Bowles as starter. They fall to 3-2 since that new lineup change. At Market Square, the Midwest leg of a home-and-home between the Pacers and the Knicks. New York won in their building. The Pacers trying to answer this evening. What a move underneath by Dale Davis, who had 18 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 blocks, and helped get Patrick Ewing in foul trouble. So the Knicks had to go elsewhere, and John Starks, one of the answers. A three-pointer gets a 30-14 run after being down by as many as 17. Then Starks pays the price, hammered by Dale Davis. Anthony Mason comes to the rescue. Patrick Ewing comes back in. Finally, in the closing minutes, when the fouls don't matter as much, and he's an animal on the boards, battling over Smith and Davis, getting the hook, and the former Knick coach losing again to his old team. The Knicks complete the home-and-home. Herb Williams filled in for Ewing and had 15 coming off the bench. Anthony had 19, Starks with 15, as the Knicks get a big night out of Anthony back in the starting lineup now and helping them their second straight win. The whole NBA is off the next 2 days, but we got much more coming up later in the show, including a big night on the road by the Nets.
Now to the college ranks, and two of the NCAA's winningest teams of all time met in the finals of the ECAC Holiday Festival. Kentucky, which hasn't allowed an opponent to come within 9 points this season, met up with the host Redmond, who have lost 3 of 8. The last meeting between these two, the 1985 NCAA tournament, won by the Chris Mullen-led Redmond. A rough night for Jamal Mashburn. The rejection by Shawnell Scott, and some trash talking going on here. Mash for 3 and nothing but the bottom of the floor. 1 point in the first half. Meanwhile, St. John's kept it close. Rowan Barrett, the Wildcats, 34-33 at the break. Second half, Cats came out. Dale Brown to Andre Riddick. Then the mash gets going. The monster mash. Over Shawnell Scott, this time a little trash talking, 86-77. The mash comes alive in the second half. Roderick Rhodes, the marvelous freshman, had 23. Kentucky is loaded this year, and they stay unbeaten now, 8-0. They lead the all-time series between these two, 10-4. The Indians of Northeast Louisiana and Arkansas. In Northeast Louisiana, playing the good D, Keith Johnson forces the steal. He had 16 on the night. Nolan Richardson is not happy. Here's why. Scotty Thurman with the great steal. Scotty Thurman with the not-so-great dunk. Ray Biggers with the rebound and the miss. Richardson said, anybody here make a dunk? Well, the Indians say, yes, Rodney Redmond can. Feeds Ryan Stewart. The Indians upset Arkansas 87-78. Stewart had 19, and Arkansas taste defeat for the first time. Maurice Stevens, 22 points, 19 rebounds. Northeast Louisiana, 59% from the floor. Just 56% from the foul line, though. The BU Terriers ventured into Cameron. And Bobby Hurley, looking like Bob Cousy, gets it to Grant Hill. And then Bobby Hurley again. Grant Hill again. Hurley again. Hill again. 8 assists, 17 points. Hill, Hurley, and Duke wins it by 44, 106-62. The Terriers fall to 1-6. For Duke, 21st straight win, 2 shy of the school record. They won 33 in a row at Cameron after losing to Michigan at the buzzer. The Tar Heels took on the host tonight. North Carolina lead it. They're going to the second half right now. Hawaii is 4-3. Obviously keeping an eye on their Hawaii football team, which picked up the victory over Illinois. After getting spanked by James Madison last night, the Cal Bears stunned by the Big Red. California playing without star freshman Jason Kidd, who set out with a bruised back and a rib. When asked about his first trip to the East Coast, he said, it's been a nightmare. James Madison met Seton Hall in the finals of the Meadowlands Classic, and William Davis, the missed jumper. Terry DeHare gets the ball, and Terry at 24. Seton Hall led by 13. Then Terry DeHare, a moment he will not be proud of. Check out the upper part and the elbow. It catches Kent Colucco. Colucco expresses his feelings towards DeHare, and he wants a piece of him. Danny Hurley to Luther Wright to John Leahy with the lay-in. He had 12, 1 of 5 Pirates in double figures, and Lefty asking PJ, I'd like a little explanation for that elbow that my man received. 86-77 the final. JMU now 6-3. The Hall improves to 11-1. More later, including Arizona, West Virginia, along with Michigan State. Gary?
Now to the NFL, and those that had Wednesday in the Ray Hanley firing pool have a little extra New Year's Eve party money. The Giants announced the inevitable this afternoon, canning their head coach. It capped the shortest tenure in the history of the franchise, 19 months, on the heels of their worst season since Bill Parcells took over back in 1983. With fans clamoring to get rid of him and players openly revolting by the end, Hanley had taken almost all the blame for missing the playoffs consecutive years following the Super Bowl, but GM George Young said there was plenty of blame for the Giants' failures.
If I got bad marks and I came home and told my mother I got bad marks and I said, well, I don't like my teacher, she'd cut off my food. She's done it. Right.
When you talk to Bill Parcells and he says he's interested in coming back, would you stop your list there and take him back?
You're talking about candidates now, and you're adding names, and I'm not adding names to the candidates list.
I'm mentioning one name, if I may. Would you take him back if he said he wanted to come back?
Well, I have no comment.
The ever coy George Young. The Giants aren't expected to wait long to name a successor. Our Chris Mortensen says 3 names head the list. Dallas offensive coordinator Dave Wannstedt, who told us he doesn't expect anything to happen before the Cowboys season is through. Boston College coach Tom Coughlin, who coached Giants receivers under Parcells, and Redskins defensive coordinator Richie Pettibone. Even if he won't, with a new long-term extension at Miami, Dennis Erickson could be considered by the Giants. Rumors of a return by Parcells aren't out of the realm of possibility, and if Ditka goes, as expected in Chicago, Pettibone might very well return to the team he played for to replace Iron Mike in the Windy City.
Almost like connect the dots on that. One other football note, the Vikings' Chris Carter will be available for Saturday's playoff game against the Redskins. He's been sidelined for at least a month due to a broken right collarbone. Minnesota hasn't thrown a touchdown pass to a wide receiver since Week 12.
A telling note there, and while the NFL is just getting started on its postseason, the bowl season climaxes Friday night in New Orleans. We'll get there in a little bit for a full report as the coaches search desperately for a defensive weakness on the opponent.
In addition to our crew at the Superdome, more from the NBA, the Admiral on Mutombo's turf, finding some rocky going against the Nuggets. Also back to the college hoop ranks, and Mike Poplawski absolutely on fire. The top 25 when we return. Welcome back to SportsCenter, back to the NBA as promised. And if you're looking for reasons why Denver has dropped 11 in a row, try these on for size. They have played each of the divisional leaders during this span. 8 of their 11 losses have been on the road. The Nuggets at home tonight hosting the Spurs, a team they lost to last week in San Antonio. How would they fare tonight? Well, they had Chris Jackson lighting it up, 18 in the first half. They led by as many as 9. Todd Lichty providing some defense. The Spurs led by 1 at halftime. Second half, the Spurs start to pull away. Vinny Del Negro finds David. David had a big night tonight. Then Avery Johnson says, well, Vinny, anything you can do, I can do better. He gets it to David as well. David had 29, 12th straight loss. That's a club record for Denver, 114-94. Sean Elliott chipping in with 24. The Spurs now 4-1 under John Lucas. Detroit returned home following a 3-game road trip. The Pistons playing the Bullets, and Bill Laimbeer can't believe what happened. And it goes. Bill can't even believe it. And where's the defense on Joe Dumars? Joe just sits for 3. He had 34. Well, this time Rex Chapman is on Joe Dumars. And this one is nothing but the bottom of the net. Fourth quarter. Great save by Isaiah. Up to Rodman. And then the 2-on-1. And the big O. Look at it again. Great play by Isaiah. Keeps it alive. Eventually get it up to Rodman, over to Orlando, and Dennis Rodman says, give him a hand. Those hands had 23 rebounds on the night. 118-110. Washington kept it close. Purvis had 27 in the losing effort. Detroit, by the way, signing Jeff Ruland to replace Olden Polynice. The 11th win in the last 14 games for Detroit. The Nets, who have a better road record than a home one, at the Target Center and on target. Kenny to Derek. Nets up by 6 in the first quarter. Still in the first, draws in. He wants to shoot. Oh, I can't. I've got to give to Sam Bowie, who had 10. Nets by 10. Ben Bowie, one of the better passing big men, finds Morris. Nets by 14. Jimmy Rogers, you need more than a timeout. Second half, Nets rolling. Derek Coleman, Chris Morris, back to D.C. Nets cruise. The T-Wolves 1-12 this December, 1-13 last December, 8-45 lifetime in December. Maybe they can petition David Stern to say, could you wipe December off our schedule, please? The final, not pretty, though. The Nets shooting just 37% in a loss to the Timberwolves at home a month and a half ago. Tonight they score 34 more points and shoot 58% at Minnesota. The Celtics' final game of their road trip brought them to the Sports Arena. Right now, Boston leading it by 6. They've lost 3 in a row on the road. Reggie Lewis, 14 at the break. The Blazers, they placed Clyde on the injured reserve list today, meaning he will miss at least 5 games. They probably won't need him tonight, though. Portland at home against Dallas. Dallas has yet to win on the road. And the Flyers, Well, the only NHL game of the evening. They're without Eric Lindros tonight, and they may not need him either. They lead it 2-0 in the second period. Gary?
Only once in the last 8 years has Michigan State lost in its own Spartan Classic as they took on a dangerous Washington State team for their 4th straight title. It was a homecoming for the coaches. Judd Heathcote against his alma mater, and the Cougars' Kelvin Sampson going against Heathcote, whom he served as a graduate assistant. Had he learned anything? Well, he was about to be taught another lesson by the man in green with the Julius Caesar haircut. Mike Popowski doing most of the damage, jamming it home. Spartans up by 4 in the Cougs, and he has got himself up in arms. The alley-oop, though, and the Cougs answer. The alley-oop to Tony Harris from Benny Seltzer. It was cut to 1. Harris had 17, but Popowski was unstoppable. The turnaround, Jay. Then he goes to the hook. Everything falling. And Kelvin Sampson gives another one to his old coach. 77-61. Popowski had 24 points, 14 rebounds, and was the tournament MVP as the Spartans have now won 6 in a row as Heathcote takes on a team that he graduated from in 1950. At the Fiesta Classic, Arizona, 15-0, had won all 7 of its previous tournaments, had its hands full with Gail Catlett's Mountaineers, and finally pulled it out 75-74. It has been a rough start for the Wildcats this season. Arkansas falls to Northeast Louisiana. It's the first time in 17 years the Indians have beaten a ranked team. Syracuse stunned by Boston College. They had not lost in the Carrier Dome in a decade to the Eagles. Howard Elsley hits a 3 with under a second left to pull out the Big East opener. Georgetown just underway with the Anteaters down by a point early on in the final of the Disneyland Freedom Classic. And elsewhere, it's just started in the second half. The Bruins, coming from behind, have taken the lead on Cal State Fullerton. Oklahoma, the Sooners now 7-0 under Billy Tubbs against Texas, unbeaten in this tournament that they host as they win 85-76. UNLV played just 4 times this year, but they're about to win again. They're up early on. They've won 50 in a row on their home floor. Florida State wins it. Sam Cassell over 30 for the second straight time. Nebraska rolls over Fordham with 4 players in double figures. And the big one, the tournament climaxes with a title game at 1 a.m. Eastern in the Rainbow Classic. The Wolverines looking for their 3rd straight win over a top 20 team. Highlights of that coming up on the next Sports Center. When we come back here, we'll go to the Superdome where Alabama's stifling defense will try to stuff Miami's 28-game winning streak. A bear of a task. Scores aplenty as we head for the holidays. Let's get more now. Another overtime game as Rutgers beats Manhattan in the consolation game of that tournament, and Georgia beats Colorado. Now back to bowling, and the latest contribution to Bowl Week on ESPN was the Thrifty Holiday Bowl just before SportsCenter. It featured a rare venture to the mainland and primetime for Hawaii, and an even scarcer sighting of the Rainbows, a bowl game, just the second in school history as they faced Illinois. That's if you don't count the Pineapple Bowl in the 50s. And it was a game in which Travis Sims would be tracking against Illinois. They've got a tremendous ground attack, number 2 in the nation. Sims scored twice in the ground. Hawaii comes from behind. They're up 14-10. Illinois goes to the razzle-dazzle. Jason Verduzco getting the ball back on the lateral and then doesn't bother to pick it up. And Hawaii recovers, setting up a field goal. Then a rare pass from Hawaii's option quarterback Michael Carter, who threw the 6th in the night, but this one to Derek Branch connects for a touchdown. 53 yards in all. The Big Ten looking bad again in the bowl game as Illinois has now lost 4 of his last 5 bowl appearances, in Hawaii making a statement. They're coming off their first 10-win season. They win it by 10. And finished the season at 11-2.
It was 10 years ago yesterday that Bear Bryant coached his final game at Alabama, a 21-15 victory over the Illini in the Liberty Bowl. Gene Stallings has proven to have the Bear necessities, leading the Tide to 22 consecutive victories, but he's still looking for that elusive first national title. Coach Stallings will join our New Orleans trio following the news of the day.
Thank you, Dan. Revelry in New Orleans, where they don't wait until New Year's Eve to celebrate. The fans from both sides have arrived. Cheers of Go Canes and Roll Tide echoing throughout the French Quarter this evening. Welcome to our ESPN Bowl headquarters. I'm Chris Fowler, along with Lee Corso and Craig James, a couple of Rebels themselves, and we'll talk to them a little bit later on. Speaking of a news of the day, the joint team party, good, clean revelry, nothing to report. Michael Rogers, the Alabama linebacker who had suffered some head injuries on Christmas Eve. Good news is he's out of the hospital, hopes to make his way to New Orleans and be on the sidelines. The final media circus today took place earlier. Lamar Thomas of Miami setting a Sugar Bowl record for the most mini-cams. One final chance for he and his teammates to take verbal shots.
It's not intimidating me by a long shot. You know, I like taking hits. I mean, the harder you hit, the better I feel. So, you know, it'll be a challenge.
Miami at practice. Those are not Alabama players. That's the scout team wearing Tide colors. They're doing the Seminole War chant, reminding Florida State that the Seminoles are not here for the championship game. Meanwhile, Alabama practice. That's Derek Lassick, the running back, the backup field goal kicker for Coach Stallings. You better hope not, missing wide left. Now, the players do seem loose, but one Miami coach told me they're ornery. It's like the end of two-a-days. They're very keyed up. They want to hit somebody.
Well, Chris, I think they're loose, but they're also confident, and they ought to be. Both these teams know how to beat good teams in big games. Alabama and Miami both are 4-0 against teams playing in this year's bowl games. They're tough. They know how to beat good teams.
Craig, for the Miami seniors, this is the third time they've been in a national championship-type game. Is that a factor? There's an edge over there.
It helps quite a bit because Miami's players, they've had to be around this kind of situation. It's a circus environment. But Alabama had a blessing on December the 5th, and that SEC championship game, that was a national game. Everybody in the country was watching it. It was a big-time championship game, which it was. So they've had a little feel for what's going to happen down here. New Orleans all week has been revved up, and that'll help these Alabama players.
Not quite as big as this situation here,
No,
though.
not it.
One man who knows about that, Alabama coach Gene Stallings, with clan in tow. So we have 3 daughters, 1 son, a niece, a brother-in-law. Leave out anybody?
Well, yeah, and we left a few at the hotel.
Okay. You've done a lot to reawaken the Alabama tradition of 100 years. How do your current players feed off that? How does it help them prepare for a big game like this?
Well, first of all, we don't really have a whole lot to do with the past 100 years. We feel like we can sort of set the tempo for the next 100 years. This has been a fun year. It's been an outstanding year for us, really. It's no selfish players on this particular team. They want to win. The offense is proud of the defense, and defense proud of the offense, and everybody started helping out on the kicking game, and it's made for a fun year. But hey, this is a big game, as we've alluded to. But Alabama's been in a lot of big games, and I think they're ready to play.
Called your offense conservative. What do you have to do to win this game in your mind? What's the
Well, I think 17, 21 points, somewhere in that range is what I think whoever's going to win the ball game is going to have to score that. They've got an outstanding defensive unit. We do, too. We play defense extremely well, but you have to go out and think that we're going to hold them to no points, a few yards. It's not realistic. To think we can go out there and control the tempo of the game, I think that's realistic.
No mistakes, you win the ball game?
Well, we're plus 18 in turnovers, and I think turnovers is going to be the key to this particular game. We're a relatively conservative team, a little bit more so offensively than we are defensively, but yeah, I'll take our chances.
Been a little bit of jawing. That's kind of Miami's style. It hadn't been your style. Is there any chance they're drawing you into a trap of that?
Well, it's been very little of it, really. What little of it probably has been blown out of proportion. We've had a good week of practice. Our curfews are at 11 o'clock. We hadn't had a player late for a curfew. They've all assembled here in New Orleans. Nobody was late. I think we've gone about this business-like. We treated the game like any other game. We've alluded to it's a big game, but you tell me Florida wasn't a big game, or Tennessee wasn't a big game. The stakes are a little higher in this particular game.
Well, good luck in this big game. We appreciate it. Taking time out from the airtight schedule. Alabama coach Gene Stallings. SportsCenter will continue from the home base right after this.
This bowl update is brought to you by Duracell batteries. You can't top the copper top.
The Suns going for their 14th win in a row. Hakeem wanted to have a say-so about this one. Rockets trail by 4 at halftime. Second half, Charles wanted to say something about it. KJ finds him. Suns by 12, and it counts. And then KJ, great move around Kenny Smith. Back to the act. Suns win it big, 133 to 110. The late scores, Boston trying to pick up a win on the road, and Portland without Clyde having some problems with Dallas.
SportsCenter is brought to you by Office Depot, taking care of business with guaranteed low prices on thousands of brand-name office supplies.
And Hawaii against North Carolina. Carolina topping them 51-34. Looks like a breeze for them after they lost by a point to Michigan the night before that. Of course, the big title game coming up later between Michigan and Kansas. Highlights in the next SportsCenter at 11:30 Pacific time. I'm Gary Miller.
I'm Dan Patrick. Fame Game Flashbacks is next. We'll see you tomorrow night.